It's not NATO, it's not Five Eyes. What is AUKUS?
Well, I think it's an ad hoc arrangement that accomplishes several very significant things. The nuclear submarine capability for Australia is hugely important for them as a maritime country, a continent-sized maritime country in the Indo-Pacific. It's a way of the U.S., U.K., and Australia working together in that region in cyberspace and more closely on intelligence as well, since the efforts of the submarines are going to have to be brought into that kind of network. And I don't think it's exclusive, with all due respect to those who think they've been snubbed. I don't think that's accurate at all. One thing, for example, that we should be thinking about right now is the Quad, as it's called in Asia. India, Japan, Australia, and the United States will have another virtual summit meeting before the end of this month. It's something that got started years ago, didn't go very far, but it's begun to accelerate even in the Biden administration. I don't see why the Quad can't be expanded at some point to include Britain, other Europeans who are like-minded, countries like Singapore, maybe the Philippines, maybe Vietnam. So this is an evolving circumstance. It's not the late 1940s when we faced the Soviet threat and NATO was created. These countries come from very different backgrounds, but it's possible that we will move in the direction of NATO. But in the meantime, AUKUS, not the best acronym I've ever heard of, but certainly Australia, Great Britain, and the United States have a long history of cooperation, a century really of fighting together, as President Biden said, and we should move forward with that and hope it's an example and a signal to others.
As a recent national security advisor, it will come as no surprise to you to see how our rival, if we can describe it using that word, militaries line up. But the British newspapers, John Bolton today, full of those handy graphics, graphicising the strength of China's blue water navy right now. And I have to say, I, for one, was surprised to see the extent to which it's built up. In size, bigger than the American fleet. There's an argument about whether the American fleet's more powerful for a variety of technical reasons. But nonetheless, over the last 10 years, there is no denying that China has built up a formidable arsenal as a seagoing nation and one which threatens our interests in the Pacific potentially.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, this is the biggest Chinese naval capability in 600 years. From the point where they decided they didn't need a Navy, now they've decided they do. The U.S. Navy, roughly about 285 capital ships at sea. Most recent bipartisan studies have said we need at least 350, and even that's a long way from Ronald Reagan's desire to have a 600-ship Navy, admittedly during the Cold War. So getting additional capacity, especially in the South and East China Seas, is very important. This is a step in that direction. The U.S. needs to do a lot more. I think we'll see Japan and hopefully others do more as well.
John Bolton, if you'll just hold that pose for us for a minute and a half, thereabouts. I want to introduce another story which I'm sure you've got a view on, and that is that America's most senior general, twice secretly called the head of China's People's Liberation Army, this in the final months of the Trump administration, to reassure the Chinese that the president wasn't about to declare war. It's an extraordinary disclosure. It's led to accusations of treachery from Trump loyalists. But the Biden administration says that General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, did his patriotic duty. What to make of this? John Bolton, what should we make of it?
Well, I issued a statement on this yesterday. I mean, it's really, I think, much ado about nothing, but it's good publicity for Bob Woodward's book, which will be coming out soon. And he has the same publisher that I do, so I know a little bit about how they leak selectively from books they want to promote. Look, during my experience as National Security Advisor, there were several occasions where then Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Joe Dunford, called his counterpart in one of our adversaries. It was something the senior national security team talked about. We thought there would be a good reason for it. He went ahead and did it, and it helped America's interest overall. In this case, Milley, the book says, and look, I'm not going to vouch for the book's accuracy or inaccuracy, but it starts off by saying Milley had intelligence that the Chinese were looking at the confusion in America and fearing that we might, in a wag the dog scenario, take action against them. Now, this is the kind of thing where miscalculation can occur. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to go to the Chinese and say, don't be misled by what you're seeing. I mean, obviously, you're not going to tell them we're reading their mail and listening to their phone calls. You have to say something else. So don't worry about what you're reading in the papers. We're not planning to attack you, and don't you think about attacking us.
I mean, from a distance by that stage, which I suppose you were at least a step removed from the White House by that stage, were you equally worried about the state of the president's mind, that he might resort to desperate measures?
Well, I think we still have a lot to learn about what his relationship was to the rioters who attacked the Capitol on January the 6th. That, to me, is one of the saddest days of American history to see that happen. But it's not so much a question, I think, of what Trump's mental state was, as Milley and other senior national security officials being worried that a hostile power like China could judge that perhaps this was a moment of American weakness they should take advantage of and strike first, or that they might fear we were going to strike first and try and preempt us. So there are a lot of different, in that case, contradictory scenarios that lead to the risk of a Chinese miscalculation. And I think it's only prudent to do what one can to say, think very carefully about this. Things are not what they may seem on the surface here. We are completely prepared to defend ourselves, and we're not planning to launch an attack.
And assuming that Woodward's account is true, there's no reason to dispute it. I mean, on one level, it's encouraging this, isn't it? That there are checks and balances, or at least grown-ups in the room, who can see a potentially looming problem and make a call. You can characterise that call as secret. It doesn't really matter. It was a necessary call.
Yes, I think it was. And let me say, in terms of secret calls, just to let people know how the Pentagon works, I bet there were 20 people on the American side listening into what Milley said in those two calls, taking notes furiously, so they could all write memos to their superior officers. This will come out. The January 6th commission created by the House has said just a few hours ago they're going to be investigating this. So I think there's a lot more to come. I'll be surprised if there's anything nefarious here. As I say, I've been through this myself. And I think what Milley and the others had in mind was making sure that in what was a difficult time for us in the U.S., the Chinese didn't think about taking advantage of us.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.